Hi, my name is Graham Smith. I'm the Director of Family Ministries at Grace United Methodist Church, and I want to thank you for your consideration for me for the Emerging Young Preachers Festival coming up in the next couple of months. First question, well, why do I feel called to preach? The honest answer is that I didn't for a long time. I grew up in the church, and music has always come pretty naturally to me, and so I just assumed that all of the opportunities that I had to lead worship, this was God telling me, Ram, worship leader, rest of your life, that kind of a thing. And I never really thought about preaching. I thought that the only meaningful thing that ever came out of my mouth was in the form of a song. And the only time that I had significance in front of people was if I had a guitar in my hands. And that was what God wanted me to do. That was my calling. And then I got to this pesky little preaching class my junior year of college. And I went in begrudgingly and crossed my arms and said, I don't want to be here. I'm a worship leader. I'm not a preacher. And I sat down at my preaching group, and one of my good friends looked at me and he said, who do you think you are? Telling God how he can and cannot use you. You're called to preach. And it struck me as interesting that God might actually have a different plan for me than what I had for myself. So through the affirmation of friends and in that class, through the other classmates and the professor, I kept fighting it, but the evidence was there that I was called to preach. Every time I would preach, someone would tell me, not you did such a good job, that's arbitrary and whatever. It doesn't mean as much as when someone comes up and says, God really used you to speak into my life. That's how you know something special has happened. And one of our assignments was to get in a room by ourselves and just spend a day with God. No distractions. He's quite specific in saying no music, which was my Achilles heel. No music, just you and God. So I went into an unused dorm room and laid down on my face, turned all the lights off. And I asked God to speak to me. And I was taken to 1 Samuel chapter 3, where Samuel receives his call into lifelong ministry and service. And he hears the Lord call to him, and through a series of things, he ends up saying, speak, Lord, for your servant is listening. So when I got on my face, I said, speak, Lord, for your servant is listening. And usually when I said that, I meant, speak, Lord, for I'm ready to play my guitar. Or speak, Lord, for I'm ready to lead people in worship. Or speak, Lord, for I'm ready to dazzle the audience with how good I am at music. But not this time. This time I said, speak, Lord, for your servant is listening. And I walked out of that room knowing beyond a shadow of a doubt that I was called to preach. The community of believers that God surrounds me with, that he plunges me into willingly or unwillingly, they have done a magnificent job of affirming that I am called to preach. And the reason I know I'm called to preach is that every single time I get on stage to give a sermon, there is nothing in me that can produce anything meaningful. Unless the Holy Spirit is present, it will be at its best moment an inspirational talk. It may evoke a few tears, might get a few laughs, but at the end of the day, if the Holy Spirit isn't completely present, surrounding in and with my sermon, it's not going to mean anything. And that's why I think preaching still matters. My call to preach and my view of the significance of preaching is one and the same, that it is one of the few things left in Christianity that is 100% dependent upon the presence of God. If the presence of God isn't there, it might feel nice, might come across really polished and professional, but it doesn't mean anything. No, but when the presence of God is there, something different happens, something unexplainable. Shortly after Samuel accepts his call from God, God says something to Samuel. He says, I'm about to do something new in Israel. The ears of the people who hear it will tingle. I love that word, tingle. That's why I think preaching still matters, because God's about to do something new in the world, at which the ears of whoever hears it are going to tingle. They're going to perk up and say, what's God doing? I love that. That's why I think preaching still matters. Thank you for your consideration, and hopefully look forward to seeing you at the end of May.